Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Seen Better Days podcast. I'm Aria from Hoity-Toity. I'm here with my co-host Andrew from Loser Parade.
Hello.
And our special guest Jhariah from Jhariah.
Hi.
From New York.
From New York?
Yeah.
New York, or where in New York?
Bronx. Although I'm in Brooklyn now. Brooklyn guy.
Damn, no sleep till.
Infamously, first time I had any idea who you were, I said you were like a Swaco situation, and that got...
And I didn't know who Swaco was.
I also don't know who Swaco is, actually.
There we go.
Anyway.
He was like, is Jhariah an artist or a band? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fair question, I feel.
Jhariah is the lead singer of Jhariah.
Exactly.
Which is a two-piece band.
But not always. The very first show you ever did was a 4-piece full band thing, right?
Oh, wow. You really Nardward here. But yeah.
Nick Nard, not War.
I'm actually curious about that. What
happened to those other two assholes?
Right, because when I saw the thing, you said, like, I was reading an interview and you said the actual show went well. It was just kind of a pain in the ass to get everyone up to speed. Is that why you dropped down to 2?
So basically, I mean, to make a very, very long story short, we did that whole thing, and then after that, we all sat down, and they were like, yeah, I mean, I just really wasn't, I don't feel like that was for us, you know, like, it was just, like, very difficult, you know? I guess, like, the music was very, like, complex for them, because they're, like, very good players, but not really familiar with, like, any, like, theory or anything. So it was literally, like, me trying to, like, manually, like, teach the songs on instruments that I don't play, because, like, that was, like, there was no common language between all of us, basically. So it was just, like, a nightmare. And then Cole was like, but I'm down, actually. I mean, like, I'm down to keep doing stuff. So we were like, cool, let's keep doing things. And then, like, the more and more we worked together, you know, the closer we got, like, creatively. And funnily enough, we were still in another band with those two guys called Hoomps. And that's its own mess of a story. So that is also over.
I was about to ask if that band's still active.
No. That's done.
And now you and Cole together are Jhariah. But you also are Jhariah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it
Jhariah, as you know it, is a concept and also a person.
Is it completely out of the question if you go on tour, if you ever, quote unquote, make it big, that you'll have a touring band with you, or do you want to always keep it as a 2-piece?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely plans to have a touring band. You know, the plan is to sort of just, like, slowly build on it. You know, like, you get a guitarist, you get a bassist, you get a horn section. And, you know, probably most likely what'll end up happening is that we'll have a rotation of players. You know, I feel like it's very hard to, like, consistently have one person who is going to be, like, your touring musician, because most likely they're also a bunch of other people's touring musicians. So, you know, but that's definitely, like, on the horizon. I think, like, after this next tour, we'll probably more seriously start considering, you know, like, looking for who to get in on this whole thing.
Yeah. It's hard. Fucking I've been saying for my band, like, I really want Hoity-Toity to have a second guitarist. But nobody wants a second guitarist except me. Which,
oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that was the original plan when I joined the band, because they already had a guitarist. They had this girl, Sarah, playing guitar, but she was, like, very much a rhythm guitarist. And so they, like, had me come in, and I was going to be the lead guitarist, and she was going to be the rhythm guitarist. And then she got kicked out, like, a week into me being in the band, because I guess they just, like, already didn't like her. And they got into a fight, and they were like, "Well, we don't have to deal with you anymore because we have this other guitarist." So
Oh my god.
kicked her to the curb. I don't fucking know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal, but I've been saying like literally since then. I'm like, kind of want there to be a second guitarist. I like it when bands have two because then you can do shit. And they're like, no, nightmare.
I want two guitarists.
Yeah. They said maybe if we're big someday, we'll hire a Jason White who plays guitar and just goes the fuck home, not in the band. But I want like one in the band,
Oh, word, yeah. I feel like that's definitely like a whole different dynamic.
It definitely is, but also like, I mean, I've done the side gun thing before. I kind of do it for Loser Parade, but now we're like actually writing stuff together. But then like, Honey Revenge, I played a show with them. I'm probably gonna do more. I don't know. We don't have any plans. Like we don't have any shows booked, but like
awesome.
It's a different dynamic. But it's also like I feel like if the chemistry is there to be playing together, like that's like 80% of like what it takes. Like as far as like writing, I feel like most of it is just being able to not kill each other.
Oh yeah, no, I can't write with other people or anything like that. Like the band as it is right now is like that's it. Like I don't think there'll ever be more people that are like part of the creative process because that just like it just aggravates me so much.
It is by far the slowest part of making music. Loser Parade is so tediously slow, and that's coming from I write 90% of the lyrics and the melody and everything else for most of the songs, and it still is such a slow process. So
I can't even imagine. It's already tediously slow with like just one person. I mean, because I feel like the hardest part is getting everyone to like it, Because like I feel like once you're involved, you're like, well, I don't want to be on a song that sucks. So then everybody has to like love the song, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I feel like at least with everybody that I've ever worked with, which admittedly is not that many people, it's been like I don't know. I'm really good at like adding shit. I'm not great at starting shit. Like. Mm-hmm. Or finishing shit, but I'm good in the middle part, like I have good ideas once in a while, but mostly I feel like where I like excel is like somebody has an idea and I'm like, okay, here's what would sound great with that, like that's where I'm like at. And so like with my band, that's like basically like somebody will have a riff and then I'll have a riff and then we'll put them together and then I'll go, okay, what if we fucked around that way, and like all this shit, it's like I'm good with like layers kind of stuff. I can't write words for shit. I'm not great with melodies. Occasionally I'll have something, but it's like I'm basically like layers and like kind of big picture shit, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's when a band works best, when like each person just organically has like a piece of the puzzle they really gravitate toward, because then everybody is just like, cool, like their head's not even at all those other places. And like, I know who should do this and who should do that.
Right. I feel like that's what's been like a big help with working with you, Aria and Loser Parade, is that I'm a good starter. Like, oh, here are some melodies and chords and lyrics, but I never fucking know how to build on it. Probably because I'm not as proficient with my instruments as you are. So even if I have an idea, I can't do it physically. So
yeah. I mean, it's you write really good foundations. I don't know. I think it just kind of makes sense to like. I'm more of a fleshing shit out. That's the same thing with Shelby. It's like Shelby's good with melodies, but like Shelby's melodies always come like bouncing off of like whatever the band comes up with. She's never like we don't really start with words or start with melodies. It's usually we start with a guitar riff or a bass riff or a drum groove, and then somebody also bounce off of that, and then it's just like a big back and forth. And then all the while, Shelby is like,
yeah,
whatever the fuck singers do. I don't know. You people are weird. I don't sing. I don't believe in singers.
That's fair. Completely fair. Speaking of foundations, I say this as one of my biggest, like, not inspirations, but the reasons why I perform the way I perform and write the way I write is I was a theater kid growing up, and I know you were also a theater kid, Jhariah, in 2007.
Well, how can you tell?
Well, in 2017, he did his first and only musical, I believe, and before that, he was a techie on the side. So the reason I bring this up is, has theater or your time around theater impacted the way you write and perform?
Hmm. I would say not so much the way I write. Okay, actually, I think in a lot of ways, theater defines a lot of the things that I try to avoid when I write. So I guess you could say it's impacted in a way. I mean, it's kind of funny. I think initially there was kind of that like influence, and then I just got like really bored of it.
That's
Like
fair.
I was just like, ugh, like I don't want to make songs that sound like I'm just trying to do a musical, you know? Sure, I want people to be like, oh yeah, like I could tell you're, but like, I didn't want to do the whole like musical thing as like my shtick, I guess. But there is definitely that, but it definitely huge influence in the way I perform though. That was like a big thing. I feel like having that kind of instruction early on, because that was the first time I performed like at all, really. So I think having that like foundation as far as like, hey, like you're taking up space on this stage, like here is how to do it, how to make yourself seen, and express the things you want to do. Like there's already this like intention to express like emotion and narrative before I even had like songs to sing or instruments to play on the songs, So I think that has kind of been like a through line for everything, where it is like a little theatrical on stage and it's very sort of like, big and narrative driven.
Theatrical is definitely a word I would use to describe your music. I mean, I don't think it sounds like any musical, at least not any musical that I've heard, but it definitely sounds theatrical. It sounds very dramatic. It has a lot of the qualities of like, this is telling a story and somebody's getting stabbed.
Yeah,
I
I
think
love some theatrics. I can't lie.
I think I agree. I feel like it sounds like theater, but without the cheesy shit. Like, for the lack of a better description.
I mean, that's what I would hope for. I mean, I love theater. I love a good musical, but it's not even. It's like I just feel like it's been done already.
Yeah.
Like there's. I don't really think I have anything to contribute to that space, and I think maybe early on I hoped that I would, and then I made an album, and I was like, that's about as much as I have. Like I'm gonna have to just like do something more original now. All of the theatrical tropes and stuff have been done. Everybody's made their like jazzy number, and they're like, it's all been done. So
I know your first album was a concept album, I believe, which you've classified as maybe not the smartest idea for a first release. In interviews I've seen, do you think you'll ever return to that? Because I know you're working on new music now. Or are you completely away from that? Because I know some of your biggest influences were like the Black Parade and other things like that.
yeah. So am I away from that record specifically, or like concept album?
Concept albums, more or less, because emo pop punk. I know genre wise, you're very open. You are willing to write in a lot of different spaces. I just mean the narrative part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I love narratives. I love concept albums. So I mean, pretty much everything we've ever released has had some kind of concept, or narrative behind it. So that's something I always love to include, just because I feel like going into writing something or going into a project, I just need like a structure, like I want to create some sort of space for the songs to exist in, and a lot of times that ends up being a story in one way or another, because I feel like songwriting is just storytelling, regardless of what story it is or what words you're using. So before I even like jump into writing a song, I'm like, okay, well, what record is this song on, and what is the story of the record, and where is it going on the album? And that's the case for all the stuff that we've done last year and the stuff we're working on right now.
I know Hoity-Toity's releasing 2 EPs this year. Is there any sort of narrative between them, or is it just two collections of music?
Well, there's not really a narrative. There is kind of an overarching theme. Um, I mean, most of our songs that are going to be on those EPs, aside from 2 that nobody's heard because we've never played them live, but most of them are on the live album that we did last year, and it's very much kind of the sort of, I guess, concept is like kind of exploring different sides of our style and like different kind of contrasting sounds. One of them is very like indie pop, indie disco type, like, you know, very like kind of early 2010s, I would say, vibe of like Two Door Cinema Club, or maybe some late 2000s like the Killers type stuff, you know, that kind of vibe, very danceable, you know, and pretty upbeat, but still kind of, you know, I think all of our music has a little bit of the dramatic stuff that Shelby does with like her kind of more R&B influenced vocals. And then the second one is a lot more in like the emo kind of harder rock space, with a lot of like also like kind of classic rock influence, a little bit of like not like full goth, but like a little bit of like The Cure kind of like post-punk influence. And so like those kinds of vibes being the 2 different EPs basically is like that's the idea, is like, hey, this one's this way and that one's a different way.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think Loser Parade's going to explore the concept of having well-produced music for the first time. That's
You could try it.
Well, we'll see.
I think the main thing is experiment with the concept of record the drums first and then the rest of the
I didn't know.
I don't know how you do it the other way. Jhariah, I have to ask. Before you ever recorded music, if somebody asked you what instrument gets recorded first?
I mean, I feel like I'm not the person to ask. Like, we've never recorded drums first.
Really?
Not really, but that's only because the music just starts from like, it starts with production, you know? Like, I very much approach it the way you'd approach like an electronic song. So by the time we're at drums, there's already like demo drums made with like guitars and vocal arrangements and like synths and everything else. So like the drums are one of the last things, honestly.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, but you know, again, it's like we don't write songs in person. Like I never write a song without producing it. You know, like because I'll forget it. I can't remember songs, and I don't know how people are in bands where they're like, we wrote 10 songs and now we're gonna go record it. They don't exist anywhere. Like there's no way my brain could store that much song.
Same.
All right, fair enough.
See, you know, yes, I fucked up, but it happens.
Okay, well, I will ask though. The drums are like quantized, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't need to start with the drums because they're quantized. But you know, if you're not working with things that are quantized, I feel like you have to start with the rhythm section.
Yeah, right? That's really the root of the problem.
Hey, you know, I'm not the only one to blame. Me and Tana both recorded at the same time.
Yeah, that's also weird.
Fair.
That's
something.
I think Tana just didn't want to say anything. Tana will never say anything about anything ever.
Fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, if you were in a like situation where Tana like got stabbed, right? And you were just like doing something already, she would wait till you're done and then be like, by the way, like I got stabbed. Could you drive me to the hospital?
I was about to ask,
like she's just not gonna make a fuss about it.
Is Tana the type of person to hide the zombie bite?
No. But she is the kind of person who, rather than say anything, would just leave.
Damn.
Interesting.
Just be like, oh, I got bit. All right, bye.
Damn.
And then everybody's like, where'd she go?
So, I know that when you first started performing as Jhariah, you were going to different open mic nights and different things along those lines. And so my question is it harder to perform at a open mic night where the expectations are low, but also no one gives a shit, or at a performance where you know people actually want to hear your music?
Open mics are the worst. They're way worse. That I'd literally rather play like in front of a bajillion thousand people than have to play like 5 feet away from people in the same room. It's like it was a good way to practice, I think. You know, like it was definitely one of those things where I needed to develop that like stage presence and confidence to be able to do it. But I wouldn't say it makes for like an enjoyable performance as much, you know. At least not on my end. It's just one of those things. I feel like you I mean, one, it's just really intimate, which is like a lot. But then that's not even the worst part because I feel like any kind of performance, if you're like really putting it out there, is going to be somewhat intimate. But my thing with open mics is just that nobody really wants to see you. They just want to go and do their thing, you know. So you can kind of feel it like in the air, and it just really puts like a lot of strain, you know. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I feel that. I agree. I agree 100%. I was just curious. Have you just recently, Aria, started singing more often than not? If you performed at open mic nights, were you that person to bring a guitar and just do and song or something? Or
I used to perform at open mic nights all the time, actually. The thing about it is, I'm an asshole, right? I'm a terrible, horrible person, and I'm evil. So we had this place. Well, the place still exists. It just doesn't have an open mic anymore. But there's this place in Yucaipa called the Queen Bean, which is this shitty little cafe. It used to be kind of a cool spot where like the high schoolers would hang out. I don't think anybody hangs out there anymore because it basically just became a normal, more expensive than Starbucks coffee shop. It used to be like kind of a quirky place, you know, where they had like weird drinks and like open mic and like events and stuff. But now it's just like it's Starbucks but more expensive and tastes worse. But they have a little stage in there, and they used to do open mic nights. And at the time, there were no rules. Literally anybody could play anything. And so I would show up with my old amp was a Line 6 Amplify 150, which, by the way, fuck Line 6. But
probably better than my Marshall.
You know, anything's better than any amp that works is better than a Marshall that doesn't. But that's beside the point. On a good day, your Marshall is absolutely miles above whatever this amp was. It was very much a gimmick amp where it's like a modeling amp. You have like different sounds, and then you can, with Bluetooth, you can play your music through the amp, and it has like a separate big speaker that like is just for that, so you can like play backing tracks through the amp and play along with them. And so I took this to the open mic, and I would just play like Crazy Train or like whatever fucking like boomer rock song because I was in high school, so this was my peak boomer rock phase.
Yeah.
And also at the time I was playing a Dean Razorback, which is like the pointiest of all pointy guitars. Which I don't have that guitar anymore. I traded it for my Les Paul, but I absolutely looked like a complete fucking douchebag at 15 walking into this coffee shop where everybody else is like ukulele singing Riptide, and I walk in and I'm like, all right, I'm going to crank this, and I'm going to play Crazy Train at way too loud of a volume. I did not need to play it that loud of a volume because you can adjust the levels of the amp and the backing track. Like, there was no reason for me to be as loud as I was, but I was that loud because it's rock and roll, baby. And then I would leave. And so, that was my initial experience. And then they stopped having open mic. Well, first they stopped letting you do electric at that open mic. So I would do acoustic shit, but I hated it because you can't melt people's faces acoustic. And also my acoustic guitar's a piece of shit. But I did go to a different open mic night at Augie's in Redlands back when it was by the alley. Have you been there?
I have not.
Okay. Well, they had in the alley, they would host an outdoor open mic, which is also great for being loud and obnoxious. And so I did the same thing until they shut that open mic down too. I think they shut both of them down specifically to get rid of me. So that's my experience with open mics. Is like in high school, I would just be way too loud and obnoxious and play things that you were not supposed to play at a normal open mic. Like I think they just assumed that everybody would be normal and acoustic, and I just went, well, I have this amp here, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to be way too loud, and that's how I got started. And then I joined a band, and they were like, "You fucking suck. Why are you like this?" And so now I understand how to music good.
Yeah. Okay, that's another thing with open mics, though. I always felt like the thing I was doing was just like it just didn't fit at an open mic. Like I'd like bring my phone and use the little Apple adapter thing to like connect the backing tracks and stuff, and it would just like it would always sound awful because nobody was expecting that kind of setup. They'd be like figuring it out on the spot, and the mic would be like way louder than any of the music, so it was like I was doing karaoke.
Yeah.
And it just felt out of place, you know? Like I feel like you can't like rock out and do like a real show when everybody else is like sitting at a table with like their 2 required drinks that they had to buy to be there, you
Right.
know?
I agree. That's a probably I feel like the one and only negative thing I feel about backing tracks. It's not even the backing track's fault, is that I've seen too many times where we're on a set with another band and this band is using tracks, but the venue isn't equipped to use the tracks, and so it just makes their overall sound way worse. And it's nothing against the band. I'm sure if they worked, it'd be fucking great, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, it's such a fucking pain in the ass. And, like, we want to get, like, our fucking, like, Hoity-Toity wants to get backing tracks going so that Shelby can get the hell off of the keyboard, because having a keyboard in the middle of the stage is obnoxious and gets in the way of us trying to rock out as a 4-piece band. You know, there's only so much room on the stage, especially when we're playing shitty fucking tiny-ass stages. And so we're like, let's get all the keyboard stuff and put it on a backing track. But then, like, I did that gig with Honey Revenge at fucking Buddy's house, and like the backing track, like we kept constantly having to adjust the backing tracks. Those were a problem at all of the rehearsals, like getting the levels right and like figuring. And for some reason, there would always be an issue of like, wait, suddenly you can hear the click. I don't want you to hear the click. I want you to hear the backing track. You silly. And like we just kept having to like figure that shit out. And like at the show, I feel like it was too quiet at the beginning, or too loud at the beginning and then too quiet at the end, or was it the other way around? But like it kept changing, and I'm like, these are supposed to be all the same volume. I don't know why they're not being that way. I don't know. I don't understand technology. I don't know a goddamn thing about shit. I just play the string thing that I wiggle the notes and they come out of the noise box. That's all I know.
Yeah, you like need to have a good sound engineer if you're doing tracks. But also, if you ever need help putting together a good backing track setup, I feel like we finally figured it out. So.
Hell yeah. Yeah, whenever we get around to our shit, I'll hit you up, because I know that if Shelby and I try to figure it out ourselves, we're going to have a very bad time.
I honestly, sincerely doubt Loser Parade will ever write music that will need backing tracks. I could be wrong, but
I don't know. We kind of might need backing tracks for that new song with the fucking horns, unless we can get unless Nate Funk is really down.
You know, Nate Funk, I feel like if you just say his name a few times, he'll show up. Like,
all right, let's all do it.
Now?
Okay, well,
no. We don't. We can have him on later. We don't want him to crash the interview. He's a good guy, though. He's a good guy. I lost. So I was noticing when I was looking through your discography on Spotify that, of course, you have your album out, but you have a lot of singles out. Do you feel that singles are more important for growth nowadays when it comes to Spotify algorithms, social media in general, or is that just like your preference of the way you've been releasing music?
I would say both. I mean, I definitely think it's like very important for growth. I mean, I just think it's just not sustainable to put out like a bunch of records because they take so much time to make, and a good rollout costs like some money at least, you know. I mean, it could cost close to no money, but I feel like just the time and work and resources that go into doing a record, when you can kind of like, you know, work your way up to the same amount of growth off of like each song, you know, I feel like at least our strategy, the way I've been thinking about it, is that I want, you know, if we're putting out a record, for it to be, you know, for it to kind of like make like an impact and really land on a lot of ears. So the singles are sort of like an effort to build up buzz for that. And then once you're sort of like at critical mass, I guess, you know, like you release the album and you're kind of like giving it the best shot that you can, you know, because then you get like a really good like release day. A lot of people have already spent like months and months with like little pieces of this album, and hopefully have been telling your friends that you've got super cool songs. And you know, by the time they've got this thing, it's like, one, I feel like when you've been waiting for something, it's just so much better, you know. Like, you probably have to tell me to listen to an album like 20 times for me to actually listen to it. So I figure I want them to have heard about it those 20 times before I announce it, or by the time it comes out, you know?
So are you saying that on all of your social media posts, people should tag themselves and say, listen to my album? And then on the 20th time, you'll finally listen to it?
I've been doing that. Every time Jhariah tweets, I reply with the link to our EP, and also just a lot of pictures of fucking frogs on horses. That's the way to get listens.
And it works.
Frog on a horse.
It worked. What can I say? Funnily enough, I've actually been listening to y'all since like way before I even knew what DIY Twitter was.
Really? How?
Because I used to like advertise our music in like all of the like emo Facebook groups. Really? And like I would see your music in there. So I was like, oh, what's Hoity-Toity? What's going on over here?
That must have been a long ass fucking time ago too, because I don't think I've actually used Facebook to like try to promote us in like probably since like end of 2020.
No, yeah. I'm talking like 2018, 19. Yeah, like 2019.
It would have been nice if that's the current EP.
Yeah, because I remember I still had the single, and I was like, Hoity-Toity, that's familiar. I know I've heard this before. And then there was like this whole thing where I was like, holy shit, it's the same band. So that was like a cool little...
So before we were a Twitter band, we were the Facebook band.
Facebook band. Oh my god, that was terrible. I hated doing Facebook.
Dude, it doesn't make any difference. I feel like we've gained zero traction from Facebook, but even having barely joined Twitter a couple months ago at this point, like it's already done more for our music than any other social media platform has.
Twitter, okay, I don't know what the fuck it is about Twitter. Well, I think I do, but I don't have anything to back this up. This is just like a fucking hypothesis. But like, Twitter, for some reason, even though it's the platform where we have the least amount of followers, right? Like, by a lot. Like, we have more followers on Facebook, we have more followers on Instagram, we have more followers on TikTok. I think the only platform that we have less followers on is like, I mean, technically we have Tumblr, but we haven't used that since like 2017. We have a fucking Pinterest, but same story. But like, the only one that I think we've updated even since like the Not Your Kind EP dropped is like Reverb Nation, and even there, like, I'm pretty sure we have more followers there than on fucking Twitter. I could be wrong, but it's like, or like it's close. But Twitter, it's like, I don't even think. I mean, after we got suspended, I think we're at like 2,000 something now. Like, we had 4,000, I think, you know, at peak before we got fucking suspended. But which was so fucking funny too. It was in a reply to your tweet, Jhariah, where we were talking about apple sucking, and I was like, Steve Jobs, count your fucking days, and they fucking banned us for death. But yeah, but like, even after like, you know, getting suspended and having to like regain like our followers or whatever, Twitter by far like has the most direct impact on our streaming numbers. Like, every time we promote ourselves on Twitter, or like, you know, anything gets any amount of traction, or if I tweet a good take and like people start like, and I'll reply like, "Hey, by the way, check out my band." You know, like fucking every time that does more for us than like any other platform where we have like way more followers. And I don't know why, other than just like, I guess my hypothesis is that on Twitter, instead of being like an account, you're like a person or something, and so people are like, "Oh, hey, I'll like listen to your music because you're like a person." And on Instagram, you post a picture of your band, and you're like, "Hey, we have music out," and they're like, "This is just a brand or whatever." Like, I don't even know how. My light died.
Oh shit!
Hold on, I'm gonna
It
fix
didn't.
that.
Strangely, I don't think it made a huge difference.
Yeah, I don't know, but I feel that. I mean, I feel like Twitter is just so like okay. I think the entire game, or at least not the entire game, a big part of the game with like trying to get any kind of project off the ground, whether it be like music or whatever else, is like building the like recognition, where you know, like the name recognition and brand recognition and all that. And I think Twitter is just so much more conducive to like building recognition without having to like make content, I guess. You know, I feel like on Instagram, the only real way you have of engaging is like Instagram stories, which funnily enough, I feel like once I started focusing more on stories and making posts, Instagram became like actually useful, which is hilarious. But I feel like Twitter, it's like 99% just engaging, you know? So like you like build like a repertoire with people, they like know who you are, and it's all about just like conversation. And I think you know, your whole thing is you just want to get talked about.
Twitter
So
almost completely embodies like the quote unquote local scene. Like if you go to a show and you're hanging out and listening to all the other bands and talking to the other bands, it's actually gonna do more for you than trying to fucking DM someone on Instagram or whatever. It's the same exact thing. If you see someone posting music or just talking or whatever, it's so easy to jump in. Whereas on almost every other platform, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's just not the same because I think maybe because it's comments instead of replies.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
no
think that
like
is what it
community
is.
like conversational aspect. Like imagine trying to like have like your like DIY scene and you could only use Instagram. Like it'd have to be a group chat or something.
Right.
It
Oh,
would
see,
be
that's
so silly.
especially since Instagram. Back when Loser Parade first started, we were able to DM bands and to get them booked, and it was super easy. But I don't know when it happened. But now, anytime if you're not following each other, it just goes into their blocked messages or other messages or whatever the case may be. It's so stupid.
Yeah. Oh, also, all of the microphone audio is gone now.
Okay.
My computer crashed, so you're gonna be using the Discord audio.
That's okay. It's not bad. It's
just mildly worse. But yeah, that's the other thing. Why the fuck? And Jhariah, you don't know these people, but why the fuck are none of like our friends in the SoCal scene on goddamn Twitter? Like none of them.
None of them. Literally none of them. Until you made us our Twitter. By the way, she made us our Twitter and it immediately got banned. She literally turned it on and it banned.
It didn't get banned. Okay.
Suspended?
It got restricted.
Oh, right.
Which is different. People could still see it. It just, you know, you had to confirm your phone number. But I'm pretty sure that just happens because you hadn't confirmed your phone number, and if you like have an account log in from two devices but it hasn't confirmed a phone number, then it's like, hey, this is a robot or something. I don't know. But
yeah,
none of our friends, like Honey Revenge is on Twitter, right? And like a handful of other like SoCal bands, like I mean,
All Bite.
In the Morning is on Twitter, fucking and like in like DIY Twitter, like interacting with DIY Twitter. I mean, We Are the Union is kind of a SoCal band, but they live like all over the fucking place, you know. Yeah. But like most of like the SoCal bands, and especially the ones that we play with and associate with, like fucking
Instagram, Dead Radio.
Yeah. I mean, Dead Radio, The Strangers, Every Other Year, all of these bands just like no activity on Twitter whatsoever, and like I don't know why. And I've told them, I'm like, it's a really good place to connect with bands, and they're like, yeah, but like Twitter sucks. And I'm like, okay, it does. But
I think I know why. I've thought about this a lot because, funnily enough, New York City is the same way. And I feel like the commonality between them is just that they both have such big scenes already locally that a lot of bands are just like, I don't really like, they don't feel as strong of a need to connect with other bands because there's so many there in person that they think, well, eventually I could just climb to the top of all of the local bands and I'll just have my Instagram so everybody sees how cool we are. And it rarely happens that way. But I feel like with all the like, why do we have so many bands from Ohio? You know, and I feel like it's just because they're like, well, I need to be in a scene, and like our scene is like all of my friends, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like there. I feel like there's just more of a need to like build community versus when there's you're surrounded by so many people, you kind of feel like this might be all the community I need. I don't know, and that was my attitude for a long time.
I feel like it's also
Twitter
like a lot of, it seems like a lot of the bands, most of it seems to be like Midwest and then the East Coast, and then like there's like 4 bands from the West Coast ever. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with also like the states are smaller and closer together. So like even if you're like meeting everybody like in person from like touring and stuff, you know, because you're physically closer together, you can, you know, play shows with those bands and meet naturally, and then, you know, follow each other online, and then it becomes like this community. I feel like in SoCal, like, I mean, it's just not.
We can't even play with bands in our own state. Like,
yeah,
you can't even play with the
like,
San Francisco band.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go play with like okay, we're playing a show with this band Sarcasm on the 19th, and they are coming from the East Bay. That's like 7 hours, 8 hours that they're driving down. And it's the same fucking state. We're in one state, you know? Like, touring is a bitch on this side of the fucking country.
I remember when Loser Parade was talking about touring a couple of years ago. We were talking if we wanted to go 8 hours east or 8 hours up. Do we want to tour only California or hit 6 or 7 states that way? So, anyway, it's dumb. But
yeah,
everyone should be on Twitter because for touring, let's say, like, if we were going to play a show in New York, or Hoity-Toity more likely, play a show in New York, like, you guys already have the avenue and relationship that probably wouldn't be there otherwise.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's so cool about, like, the online community. Like, you got homies all over the place. It's sick.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, fucking Pink Shift just, like, fucking, like, just hit us up, and they were like, hey, like, the band from Twitter, come fucking open for us, you know. We're coming to SoCal, open for us. I'm like, okay, you know, like that wouldn't happen if we weren't on literally DIY Twitter. Literally, they just got retweeted onto my timeline when, like, I think literally like the day that I'm gonna tell my therapist on you came out. I think is like, or like, I think I might have been following them from like the preview of that before it dropped or something. But like literally, it just ended up on my timeline on Twitter. I was like, "This is fucking good." Followed, you know, and then through that entire process of that song blowing up, because it blew up like fucking instantly. Fucking like, just because I had been there the whole time, it was basically just that I was already, you know, like we just had this report, and then like we just kept being, you know, talking to each other like randomly until we played a show together, you know, and they like that just happened, you know. That's just like was a natural thing that happened. No, like every other like tour or like us playing in another state or a band from another state, like finding us has been like, you know, like actively seeking out, asking around, you know. That one was just like, oh yeah, this is a band, you know, from Twitter, you know.
Yep, that's just how it is sometimes. We've gotten opportunities just from people knowing us or other bands saying, oh, you need a band? Ask Loser Parade.
Yeah, our first tour, like in 2019, before like we had any connection with like DIY Twitter, was like so hard to book just because every like band that we were like playing with, I had to be like searching up. I would like search up venues, and then I would search up what bands are playing at these venues and what bands those bands are playing with, and I had like a big list of like these ones are kind of like our genre, these ones are maybe a little bit different, but like still wouldn't be weird. and like these are like venues that are all ages. These are 21 plus or whatever. These are like what's good for, and I had to like keep track of all of that because I didn't know any of these people, and then I had to message them, like cold message them, and be like, hey, we're a band that exists, and we're going on our first tour, and you are in Seattle, and we're going to be Seattle, so can we play together? Pretty please. And they'd be like, not answer, and I'd have to do this like 5 more times. You know? And now it's like, if I'm going to fucking, I don't know, if we ended up in Minnesota, like, I just have like probably 10 people that I could immediately hit up just from knowing them from the internet.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's crazy. I didn't even know DIY tours were possible before I was on Twitter. I was like, we're not going to go on any tours until we have a bajillion fans, because otherwise who would come to the shows? I didn't know you could do that. Like, just know people all over the world and play shows with your friends.
Right. Exactly. So before we let you go, I know you're working on a new album. I don't know how much is public of it. But do you
leak it right now?
Yeah, right. Leak it right
now. The whole
now.
thing in full, right here, right now.
I wish I could. It's not even done.
Do you know how many tracks are going to be on it?
Probably like 14.
Are you releasing it as an NFT?
I mean, somebody might beat me to it. I don't know. Probably no.
Do you have an idea or a timeline for a release or no?
Probably next year. I
Next
think
year.
we're gonna finish it this year, put it out next year, and take over the world. You know?
Yeah.
I honestly hope you can do. I hope it all goes well. So
Huh?
what'd you say, Aria?
I said Jhariah for president.
For
I'm
president, 2023.
I'm in. Where can people find you, follow you?
Find me anywhere and everywhere. Just search Jhariah. You'll find it. There's not a whole lot of Jhariahs, you know. So.
All right, perfect. At Swaco.
You're on
Got it.
LinkedIn.
No.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Go follow him and follow Hoity-Toity. Follow Loser Parade, I guess.
Mostly follow Jhariah.
Mostly follow him. Yes. All right. Bye.
Party hard.
Oh yeah.